When was the last time you genuinely felt okay? Not just told yourself you're okay, not just forced yourself to appear okay, but genuinely felt it deep in your bones without needing to convince yourself or anyone else. Maybe you've been quietly carrying around this subtle feeling that there's something deeply wrong with you, like you're secretly broken, even though you can't fully name what's broken. You keep searching for answers, trying new methods, healing techniques, spirituality. You've done all the work. You've listened to every guru, read every book, journaled endlessly, but something still feels off. And because it's still there, you start believing the lie even more strongly. Maybe I'm just fundamentally broken. Maybe something essential is missing from me. But what if the real issue isn't that you're broken? What if it's just that you've spent so long living your life as if you were? Think about that, because it's possible to spend years chasing after healing, inner peace, and meaning, not because you're truly broken, but because you've convinced yourself you must be. It's subtle. You don't wake up each morning consciously deciding you're flawed, but the way you move through your day, the way you talk to yourself, the relationships you accept, the fears you avoid, all of these quietly reinforce this hidden belief. And the reason nothing ever feels quite enough is because you're trying to fill a hole that was never actually there to begin with. You're not broken, but you've created an identity that lives as if you are. And this identity, built from years of pain, disappointment, or misunderstanding, keeps holding you back. It's why peace feels fleeting. It's why you never feel fully grounded or safe, no matter how much inner work you do. But what if, right now, you could stop believing that story? What if the real healing you need isn't about fixing what's broken, but simply realizing that you were never broken to start with? Stick with me, because the moment you see this clearly, everything begins to shift. See, the hardest part about living as if you're broken isn't the feeling itself. It's how subtly this belief shapes every single moment of your day. It's not dramatic, not something others would notice immediately. It's quiet, hidden in the pauses between conversations, in the hesitation before decisions, in the heavy way you carry yourself even when you smile. It shows up in tiny details. The way you dismiss compliments because they don't align with your story about yourself. The way you hesitate to trust opportunities that come your way, convinced they'll eventually fail or fall apart. But here's the thing. When you spend your life as if you're broken, you're living from an imaginary deficit, constantly compensating, always apologizing, forever trying to prove you're worthy of love, respect, happiness, or peace. You feel you have to earn the basic comfort others seem to find so effortlessly. You tell yourself stories like, when I finally fix myself, I'll find real peace. Once I heal this wound, I'll be able to move forward. If I just become better, smarter, more disciplined, then things will finally fall into place. But what if the reason things aren't falling into place is precisely because you've convinced yourself they can't? Not until you're fixed, until you're different, until you're finally enough. That thought alone is why you feel exhausted, not because life itself is so tiring, but because you're spending enormous energy trying to hold together a story that isn't true. You're trying to patch up cracks in a foundation that was never truly damaged in the first place. And this isn't about ignoring pain or pretending struggles don't exist. It's about understanding the difference between experiencing pain and believing you are your pain, between feeling brokenhearted and believing you're fundamentally broken. You're not your wounds, your failures, or your setbacks. Those experiences shaped you, yes. They taught you, yes, but they never defined you. At your core, beneath all these layers you've piled on top of yourself, you remain whole, valuable, and inherently worthy, exactly as you are. The problem isn't that something is missing. The problem is that you're living life through the lens of someone who believes they're incomplete. And when you finally drop that lens, when you finally question that core belief, something remarkable begins to unfold inside you. Because the truth you've been chasing isn't somewhere out there. It's already here, quietly waiting for you to see it. So, How do you begin to shift a story you've spent years believing? How do you move away from this deeply rooted narrative that you've constructed? That subtle, persistent whisper that keeps saying, "You're not enough. Something's wrong?" First, it's crucial to realize that you didn't create this belief overnight, so it won't disappear instantly either, but it can dissolve gradually, moment by moment, the very second you stop feeding it. Think about it this way. Every belief is like a plant. It only thrives because you keep watering it. You've watered your brokenness through self-criticism, through constantly reminding yourself of past mistakes, through unconsciously holding on to old stories and old pains. And because it keeps receiving your attention, this belief stays alive, growing stronger, overshadowing your potential for peace. But the moment you gently withdraw your attention, something powerful happens. The belief slowly loses its grip on you. It's not aggressive or forceful. It's simply you making the quiet choice, again and again, to no longer feed this false narrative. Imagine waking up and deciding, not forcefully, but softly, with clarity, today, I'm not going to reinforce the idea that something's fundamentally wrong with me. Today, I'll just observe when these old thoughts appear without automatically believing them. You'll notice something subtle, yet powerful in that observation. You begin to realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the presence beneath them, the observer, the awareness, watching these thoughts come and go. And because you can watch them, you have the power to gently let them pass, without internalizing them, without believing them. Over time, as you continue choosing not to feed this false identity, its power fades. You'll feel a shift, a new subtle clarity emerging inside you. Not a loud, dramatic breakthrough, but a gentle, consistent unfolding. A soft return to who you've always been, beneath the illusions you've carried. In the beginning, it feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. You've been living within the walls of these beliefs for so long that stepping outside feels vulnerable. But the longer you remain in this vulnerability, the more you realize it's exactly where freedom lives. It's where growth happens. It's where authenticity quietly comes to life. And soon, you're not just experiencing fleeting moments of peace. You begin living them. Slowly, you build a life that's no longer defined by the feeling of being broken, but by the gentle realization that you are always whole. Because true healing isn't about adding something you're missing. It's about gently removing what was never yours to carry. And this quiet shift begins the moment you simply stop believing the lie you've told yourself for far too long. As you gently start to step back from this false identity, this quiet belief that you're broken, something beautiful, even unexpected, begins to emerge. At first, it might feel subtle, almost unnoticed, but slowly, quietly, you'll begin to notice something changing within you. You're no longer trying so hard to fill gaps or fix problems. You're no longer obsessively analyzing your every action, your every thought, to see if it measures up to some invisible standard. Instead, you're reconnecting with parts of yourself you didn't even realize were lost. You start noticing simple things that used to pass you by unnoticed, like how sunlight touches your skin in the morning, or the way your breathing naturally slows down when you finally give yourself permission to rest. You find yourself smiling for no reason, feeling warmth in quiet moments that previously felt empty or uncomfortable. Without constantly reinforcing this old belief that you're flawed, you make space for something deeper, something real to surface, the gentle realization that you're enough exactly as you are. Not when you heal something, not after you achieve something, not once you prove something, but right now, in your present, imperfect, messy, human experience. And this newfound space you've created allows you to reconnect with the parts of you that felt buried beneath expectation and anxiety. Those quiet dreams, interests, and desires you once dismissed as unimportant suddenly come back into view, not as distractions, but as vital pieces of who you genuinely are. Maybe you begin to reclaim small things, hobbies you abandoned because they weren't productive enough, interests you suppressed because they didn't align with the identity you were convinced you had to embody. Maybe you find yourself simply enjoying silence again, not as something empty or threatening, but as something comforting and alive with possibility. Relationships begin to shift naturally too, not through dramatic changes, but in subtle yet profound ways. You start attracting connections that reflect your real self, rather than the mask you've been maintaining. Conversations feel more genuine, moments feel more real, and gradually, the loneliness you've quietly carried around begins to fade, not because you're suddenly surrounded by more people, but because you're finally truly present within yourself. The exhaustion you once felt, that heavy emotional tiredness, begins to lift. It lifts because you're no longer carrying the burden of maintaining an illusion. It lifts because you're not forcing yourself into a role that never fit. And as this weight releases, your energy returns, not in frantic bursts, but in calm, steady waves. And in those quiet, simple moments of reconnecting with your true self, a powerful insight gently arrives. Freedom was never something you had to earn. Peace was never something you had to chase. They've been patiently waiting, beneath all the noise, beneath all the pretending, beneath all the stories you once told yourself. They've been right here, quietly waiting for you to simply come back home. It's remarkable what happens when you finally stop trying to fix yourself. You discover a gentle freedom that's been there all along, waiting quietly, patiently, beneath the struggle. You start to understand that life isn't about constantly pushing yourself towards some imaginary finish line, some idealized version of you that never truly existed. Life, instead, is found in the ease of simply letting yourself be exactly who you are, right now, in this moment. See, you spent so long believing something was wrong, something needed to be repaired, that you never gave yourself permission to truly experience who you are outside of that narrative. But now, as that false story slowly fades away, you feel your inner world shift profoundly. For the first time, perhaps ever, you stop feeling the relentless pressure to constantly prove something. You stop anxiously reaching for validation, approval, or permission to exist fully. Because in this newfound freedom, you realize a simple, profound truth. You don't need permission from anyone else, or even from yourself, to simply be here, to feel what you feel, to want what you want, to exist exactly as you are. And this isn't resignation or passivity. This isn't settling or giving up. It's the opposite. It's an active embrace, a full-hearted acceptance of your own humanity. It's living with openness rather than resistance. It's existing in the beauty and messiness of being genuinely you, without apology. And the irony is, once you let go of this idea that something is fundamentally wrong with you, you actually become capable of genuine growth. Growth that isn't born from lack or insecurity, but from love, curiosity, and authentic inspiration. You make decisions differently, choices that align naturally with your real values, rather than desperately chasing external approval. You speak honestly, without fear that your authenticity will push people away, because you finally realize the right people will always find their way toward truth, not away from it. You move through your day more gently, more patiently, more attentively, not rushing to the next distraction or validation, but savoring each step of the journey itself. And quietly, gently, you become your own safe space. You become someone you genuinely trust, someone you can fully rely on, someone you truly respect, not because you're perfect, but because you're finally allowing yourself to be imperfect without constantly judging or correcting. This is the deep, quiet freedom you've always been seeking, not a loud external achievement or breakthrough, but a subtle internal shift. The realization that the peace you've spent so long searching for has always existed right here in the present moment. It was simply hidden beneath all the stories, all the struggle, all the illusions you carried. And now finally, you're ready to embrace it fully. What if the problem was never you? What if the pain, the confusion, the emotional weight you've carried all this time wasn't evidence of your failure, but proof that your soul was trying to speak to you? Because the longer you've lived believing you're broken, the more disconnected you've become from the truth of yourself, not just from your joy or peace, but from your ability to trust your own inner voice. Every time you said, "I'm not enough," every time you said, "I need to change," you unknowingly pushed away the most important relationship in your life, the one with yourself. And the saddest part? It was never you that needed fixing. It was the story you were given, the pressure you inherited, the roles you played just to survive, and the identity you built on top of it all, thinking that was the real you. But here's what most never realize. The moment you stop fighting yourself, you finally start meeting yourself. Not as an idea, not as a project, but as a living, breathing, feeling human being. You start seeing your emotions not as flaws, but as signals. You stop punishing yourself for being tired, anxious, overwhelmed, and instead ask why those feelings are there. You stop resisting stillness and begin to recognize it as the doorway to clarity. You become softer, not weaker, but softer in your strength. You become grounded, not in perfection, but in presence. And suddenly, you don't need to chase worth. You embody it without effort. You begin to experience life, not as something to conquer, but as something to feel. That shift alone changes everything. So if you've been living like you're broken, I'm here to remind you, you're not. You've just been carrying too much, thinking too hard, trying to be someone you were never meant to be. It's time to release it, to stop solving yourself like a problem, to stop performing, fixing, comparing, and to simply be. Because that's where the healing is. That's where you are. And if any part of this reached you, even quietly, then stay close, because this space is for you. Subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. Just one word, one moment, one truth you're walking with right now. We're not here to escape reality. We're here to see it clearly, and to remember we were never broken, just buried. Let's keep uncovering it together.